Hello, I'm Domenico the Clario. This is the second reading I'm offering you from an account of a walk I undertook in 2003 titled Breathing for Biagio, Walking. It took place from Fremantle's railway station to the town of Calabarin, some 200 kilometres east of Perth. And this is stanza 2 and 3. After I finish reading this prose poem describing this walk, I will read you another describing a walk I undertook in 2015 titled Walking Slowly Downhill, and it traced the Murray from its birth under Mount Kosciuszko to its mouth in Goulburn in South Australia, some 1,600 kilometres away, and where I ended up 3 months later. So this is stanza 2 and 3 of Breathing for Biagio, Walking, and the entire reading is titled To Love, and 2 walks, one in WA and one in Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia. This is stanza 2 and 3. I first walked through Fremantle's High Street with my parents on the day we landed in Fremantle in late July 1956, anxious to see what was to be our new home. All the passengers had disembarked just across from here, and here means the railway station where I rode from, and stared in silent astonishment at the deserted windswept village made up of grim, low-rise houses and warehouses. We wandered around not knowing what we were looking for, and certainly not finding anything at all that we could recognize. We walked for hours in circles, retracing our steps again and again back to the dock and the waiting ship, until we all somehow simultaneously found ourselves at the Roma Cafe on the western end of High Street, after a passenger had gleefully informed our motley group wandering around the streets that down there towards the sea there was a cafe that would service the Triestines' favourite dish, which was radicchio leaves and warm hard-boiled eggs, which on reaching the Roma turned out to be withered lettuce leaves and a few cold left-over boiled eggs. The tearfully apologetic owner informed us that, being a Sunday, he'd simply come in to do the cleaning, only to find himself suddenly besieged by dozens of hungry Triestines, but hungry for more than their favourite snack, ravenous for any signs of Italianness, and in the absence of anything more substantial than cold boiled eggs. And being Calabrian, he couldn't speak our dialect either. He conjured up platefuls of scrambled eggs. We ate them in a grateful but anxious silence, feeling that here, for a few minutes at least, we had found an interim home of sorts, and that scrambled eggs would most probably be the future staple of our new home. After all, we had come south, hadn't we? And as he was Calabrian, the scrambled eggs made perfect sense, both to him and to me. But did any of us ever understand how far south had we really come? That's stanza 2, and now for stanza 3. We heard a few days later, as on the way to Melbourne we crossed mountainous seas in the Great Australian Bight, that one of the passengers, a tiny Sicilian named Biagio, had left the ship in Fremantle because he was so sick of the ocean, sick of seeing all that unending water. And while the rest of us city dwellers immediately on disembarking in Fremantle had begun the search for a home, and found it temporarily, at least at the Roma, he, the farm worker, had just started walking inland towards God knows what. He just started walking inland looking for home. Years later, we heard he had managed to reach Kalgoorlie, where he immediately died. It was rumoured of heartbreak and desperation, perhaps of dehydration, but certainly of malinconia, my mother had said, or an antipodean version of Stendhal's syndrome. Or perhaps because he all too rapidly realised that the quest for home was proving impossible, for him at least. A few years later in Melbourne, our family would walk to the movies on a Saturday night. Me, my father, mother, sister, and grandmother. We would all walk back home late at night after the movie finished, whether it rained or not, huddled together in a strange, bunched up configuration, taking it in turns to protect each other with outstretched coats from the bitter winds that swept in from Port Phillip Bay, only to silently unbunch once back home into single components and fall into our beds in silence, but with our ears still ringing with the strangeness of American or British dialects spoken by the characters in the film we had just seen. That's the end of stanza 3. I hope it's been of interest to you. I will read you stanza 4 tomorrow. I hope you have a pleasant day.